Welcome to the WRAL Daily Download. I'm Amanda Lamb. Today's deep dive conversation is with WRAL's in-house North Carolina historian, Heather Leah. She's the brains behind WRAL's Hidden History Stories. And today she's going to talk about the mystery behind what has become known as the Road to Nowhere in Swain County, close to the Tennessee border. Heather, welcome to the program.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So I'm always struck with these stories. There's just so much hidden history, which was your wheelhouse, that exists in North Carolina that a lot of us don't know about. It seems like we could talk endlessly about abandoned historical sites across the state. So tell me about this particular tunnel and this road to nowhere in the western part of the state. I know you've been there. So where is it and what does it look like?
So the road to nowhere, for a long time, I thought it was just the tunnel. But it's actually a 7-mile road that literally leads nowhere, and it ends with the tunnel. And you can visit, you can drive there, you can walk through the tunnel. Essentially, it's a 7-mile road that goes kind of over and around the mountains. And if you look below from that road, you can see Fontana Lake, which there's actually an underwater ghost town beneath Fontana Lake, which that history connects directly with the road to nowhere. And then the road ends abruptly at a tunnel that goes through the mountain. You can walk through this long tunnel.
What's that like? You've been in that tunnel.
It's a long tunnel. When you go in, it's one of the longer tunnels I've walked through, and I love to go through tunnels as part of hidden history. But this tunnel, when you go in, it's very dark. You definitely want to bring a flashlight. People have graffitied it, unfortunately. There are trees growing from the top of the tunnel because it's just been there for so long. And when you get in, you can just see this little tiny pinprick of light at the end of the tunnel. But you definitely want to walk through it, not drive through it. And then when you get to the other side, the road just ends. But apparently, if you were to keep walking, you would eventually find the ruins of a lot of the towns that were left behind.
So tell me about the sign when you're getting close to this area. There's a sign there. What does it say? And it's obviously shows us that the people were not happy with this situation, that this road did not get completed.
No, yeah. At the beginning of the road to nowhere, there is a sign that says a road to nowhere, a broken promise. And then it has the dates on it of when the road was built. And then it has a hyphen and then 2 question marks, as in, will it ever be completed? And if you continue to drive down that road, you will pretty much see why people are upset, which is that they weren't able to ever access their homeland again. In fact, when the lake was created and these ghost towns were created as a result, this road was supposed to take the place of a highway that was submerged in the water. And so they were promised this new road that would let them access their homeland, their family land, and of course their cemeteries. And then the road wasn't completed. So it's a broken promise.
And so this promise, it was in the 1940s and it came from the federal government. They said, we're going to create this road. And then it just stopped. I mean, do we know why?
So we don't entirely know why. The federal government essentially came to Swain County and the people who lived in this part of Swain County, and they said, we need to build a hydroelectric dam because we want more hydroelectric power. This was during the 1940s, during World War II. And they wanted that power for the war efforts. And in fact, they used that power to help create the nuclear bomb, which was then dropped on Japan. So that is directly why they wanted to create this and why they needed to create this dam. But in creating the dam, they knew that they would be flooding a lot of the people's homes, their cemeteries, their schools. They would really lose their land. But they promised that they would build this road for them so that they could get back to these places, the ones that weren't underwater, a lot of the cemeteries and things like that. So they could go back and see their homeland and again, visit their deceased loved ones. But they started building it. And by the way, it took them years before they even started building the road, right? I'm sure the people of Swain County thought this road would be created much sooner for them since this started in the 40s. They finally start construction on the road. It looks like they're going to have this. It was supposed to be about a 30-mile stretch of road that would take them to the other side of the mountain so that they would be able to access these places. And they created about 7 miles of road and then just stopped. And they're, were asked by the people of Swain County, where's the rest of it? And it just kind of never came.
Yeah, so hence the broken promise. So we'll be back after the break with more from Heather on the catastrophic fallout from the flooding in this area and what was left behind. Welcome back to the WRAL Daily Download. I'm talking with Heather Leah about the road to nowhere in western North Carolina. So it was supposed to be 30 miles, and basically it's about 7 miles, correct?
Correct.
And they built this dam, the federal government, this hydroelectric dam, and it wiped out several towns. Tell me what's left there today.
So I have been told by the people who live up there that when the lake water is lowered, you can actually see the town of Judson. So the town of Judson was flooded. It's gone. There's nothing left. There are a few other towns up there that there are some remnants out in the woods. If you want to hike, you can actually find kind of remnants of these ghost towns. But one of them is Proctor. Mortimer is another one. It's a really big lake. So a lot of these remnants of ghost towns are on like the little corners of the lake where the lake doesn't quite reach enough to flood. And so remnants were left. But Judson is under the lake submerged. And as far as I know, they did move a lot of the graves, but some of them are very likely still under there. They didn't necessarily get everybody, especially when you're talking about families that go back generations. Some of these graves may not even be marked anymore. So there's several ghost towns kind of surrounding and submerged in this lake, and Judson is under the lake.
And I'm assuming when they did this flooding, because they knew it was going to happen, that all of the people moved out of these towns. So yeah. they were abandoned when this happened.
Yes, they were abandoned. They sold their land. The federal government paid them for their land. Some will argue it wasn't enough. Others, I'm sure, have different opinions. But the general consensus was that Swain County's families agreed to give up their homes, their schools, their churches. These were communities. A lot of them were like mill communities and these older mountain communities, but they were smaller towns too. And the agreement is they will lose these things, but the government will create this road so that they can at least go visit the cemeteries.
And that's been a big sticking point because a lot of those cemeteries, like you said, are not accessible.
No, the cemeteries, and this is, I take for granted, I can visit my grandma and my grandpa at Oakwood Cemetery in Raleigh, and it's easy. I just drive there and I can walk right up to their grave. But imagine what it would be like to not be able to go visit the grave of your loved one on their birthday or on your anniversary. And that's what a lot of these families are dealing with. They may never get to connect with that heritage again. They could have new generations of children, and you can't show them, that's where your grandma grew up. That's where I went to school. It's either under a lake or out in the woods. And while, yes, some of this was agreed upon, there was a promise that there would be a road that would take them back to their homelands, the part that wasn't completely submerged, and specifically to at least be able to visit the cemeteries. But now the only way, there's 2 ways if you want to visit some of these cemeteries. A lot of them are out in the woods, in the mountains. So I know that there's a couple that you have to hike about 10 miles into the woods, into the mountains to get to them.
Yeah, I was going to say that this has kind of become a popular thing, right? People hiking in to try to find their family's roots.
Yes. So, but if you can imagine, not everybody can hike 10 miles into the woods and to see their loved ones. My grandmother, when she was in her 90s and wanted to go visit Grandpa's grave, she could barely get out of the car to walk through Oakwood. Imagine trying to do this on a mountain. So there are people who will make the hike. And then there's also a historic organization that will take people on a boat, and they go once a year. And you get on a boat, and if you go over the lake on the boat, they can take you to the shoreline, and then it's not as much of a hike to get to the cemeteries. So pretty much you can either make the hike or find a way to get over there by boat. And then again, once a year, this historic group will take families there, and that's become an annual tradition for families to go over there. And I'm hoping to get to join them sometime soon.
I bet that would be really interesting. And to hear their stories.
That's what I want to hear their stories and, make sure they're not lost. Because when you bury history or history is getting overgrown out in the woods, there's a real risk that the stories will be lost with the next generation's passing.
Right, absolutely.
So it's about keeping that alive.
And then there was this, the federal government was forced through the legal system to repent for these broken promises by paying Swain County $52 million. What did that money go for, if you know, and did this help?
So as far as I know from the people that I've spoken with, and so as far as the government of Swain County, maybe it helped them. I'm not sure. But as far as the people that I've spoken with that grew up there, that have ancestors there, I haven't heard of any big benefit. Yeah. There wasn't a huge benefit that came to them. And certainly, while money is helpful, it can't make up for not being able to visit your grandma's grave,
Right. It doesn't change the emotional cost.
Mm-mm.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Heather, for sharing this really interesting story with us about the Road to Nowhere. And thank you for listening to the WRAL Daily Download, a production of WRAL News. Check out my 2 true crime podcasts. What Remains focuses on solving cold cases with forensic science. Follow the Truth is about the murder of Michael Jordan's father in North Carolina in 1993. Find What Remains and Follow the Truth in your podcast app.